Hey guys, welcome back. Before I get started with today's tutorial, I wanted to make a couple of announcements. The first, just in case you haven't seen it, on the stream section of your classroom, I just posted about a agenda design contest that Dr. George has asked me to involve you guys in. This is a contest to design the new cover for next year's agenda. This is a really cool opportunity for you guys to have a design that gets used for something. And also, if you do it, you get to be done with the rest of your work for this class for the rest of the year. So check that out if you haven't already. My second announcement is that I am working on a video tutorial for those of you guys who are using your smartphones and iPads to do assignments. I know it's been very difficult for you. A lot of the settings don't work the same. So I am putting that together for you guys because I've figured out a couple of things that will make working with an iPad or an iPhone or a smartphone a little bit easier. If you need help before I'm able to post that tutorial, you're going to want to go ahead and sign up for office hours with me so I can video chat with you and I can share with you some of the tips that I've figured out to help you guys who are using smart pads, smart tablets, iPads, things like that. Okay? All right, so today's assignment is turning a photograph into a graphic. So you'll see that my pizza is back, and we're going to be turning this pizza into a more like a cartoon illustrated graphic. A lot of what you would probably be familiar with the term clip art. It's going to look like that, okay? You can see my example right here. This is what we're going to be making. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. All right, so you're going to start by opening a new document in Photoshop. You're going to name it Your Name Pizza. And I just did 5x7 again. Once you've opened that new document, you're going to find a slice of pizza, and I've already provided one for you on this assignment, but you can Google your own slice of pizza, copy image, and paste that onto your Photopea document. You can use the Move tool to resize the pizza if it's too big for your document. Make sure you hit Transform Controls and that box is checked, which will give you those little outlines to allow you to drag and adjust the size of your picture. All right, so once you've done that, you're going to lower the opacity of your pizza down to about 30% so it's see-through, so it'll be easier for you to trace. Next, you are going to start tracing with the pen tool. And we're going to make sure that fill and stroke are both turned off with the white box with the X. So we're just creating a path with a blue line. And I'm just increasing the size, zooming in so I can see what I'm doing. And I'm going to start tracing with the pen tool. So for those of you guys who have been using the pen tool, this should be just more practice for you guys to use the pen tool to trace a design. If you're still struggling with using the pen tool and getting it to work correctly, again, this is when you'll want to schedule office hours with me. There's a couple of just like little wonky things that happen with the pen tool that can be tricky and hard to navigate, and that's what I can help you with. When we do a Google Meet, I can share my screen with you, or you can share your screen with me, and I can see exactly what's happening on your computer, and I can help you figure out how to fix it. So that's why creating a meeting with me on Google Meet is helpful. So I'm just going around the outside of this slice of pizza with the pen tool. Sometimes I'm hitting Alt and clicking to get rid of that handle. Sometimes I'm just kind of clicking to make little straight lines around some of those more detailed edges. And sometimes I'm just kind of going with where the handle is pointing because the curve is already where I want it to go in that particular shape. So I'm just kind of working my way around the shape of this pizza and slowly making my trace. Now you don't have to get as detailed or nitpicky as I'm being right here. I was just kind of trying to stay really true to the shape of that pizza slice. If you want to make yours a little bit more, smooth, that's fine with me. You don't have to be exact. All right, so once I reach the other side, I'm going to go ahead and connect my lines and create a complete shape that's closed. I'm going to zoom out so I can look at the whole thing and make sure I like the way it looks. And now I'm going to adjust the settings of my pen tool to add a fill color to color this shape of the pizza slice. So I'm kind of just using this as maybe where the cheese is, the layer that has the cheese on it. So I'm going to go ahead and pick kind of an orangey yellow color to represent the cheese on my pizza. And that's going to be my first layer. So I'm going to turn that shape layer off so I can see my pizza again. And I'm going to create a new layer by clicking the new layer button. I'm going to name that first one cheese, since that's which layer I want the cheese color to be on. And I'm going to name that new layer crust, because I'm going to create the shape of the crust on this layer. All right, so I'm getting my pen tool back, and now I'm going to trace another shape, and it's just going to be the part where the crust is showing. I know it's technically the crust is kind of underneath the cheese, but I just wanted to make mine up here where the crust was over the cheese, so I'd have a little bit more control over how this piece of the crust looks in the final product. If you push down the spacebar on your keyboard while you're working, a little hand will pop up, and that allows you to just drag and move your picture around on the screen to allow you to see parts of it better as you're working. It's just a quick way to kind of move everything around. All right, going to close off that shape. And now I'm going to change the color of my fill to like a tannish brown color that looks like a pizza crust would look in a cartoon version of a pizza. So that looks good. I'm going to hit OK. And now I have a piece that's just my crust. I'm going to turn my cheese layer on, and you can see that my cheese layer kind of sticks out in places. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rasterize my crust to turn into just pixels. And I'm going to select the Move tool, and I'm going to drag and reshape that crust shape to fit over that cheese shape a little bit better, so none of the cheese bits are poking out through the top of it. Once I'm done, I'm going to hit enter, and that will make my move or adjustments official. And I'm going to create another layer, and this is going to be for my pepperoni layer. All right, so I'm going to turn that cheese and crust layer off so I can see my pizza slice again. And now I'm going to use the pen tool to start tracing my pepperonis. I'm going to turn that fill off so I just have the line. I guess I was trying to pick the color of the... Okay, so actually just let's change the fill color to like a redder version of the color to create the pepperoni shape. Okay, so I'm making kind of like a, not a perfect circle, just kind of like a wonky circle to make that pepperoni. And I'm just going to trace each one of those pepperoni shapes separately. And you'll notice that when I do that, it makes a new layer for every single shape, and that's okay. We have our first one that's named pepperoni, and everyone after that is also pepperoni. It's just not named. All right, so just going around tracing these different pepperoni shapes. And since I have that fill color chosen as red, it's automatically filled in with color when I finish the trace. If this works for you, you can do that, or you can turn the fill off by choosing the X, the white box with the X, and just having the shape so you can kind of see what you're doing a little bit better, and then turning the color on when you're done. All right, so just do my last little pepperoni piece right down here. Closing it off. Just kind of adjusting the shape a little bit more before I finish. And now I've got all of my pepperoni shapes traced. So I turn my crust and my cheese back on. I can see what it looks like all together. I'm going to zoom out with a magnifying glass so I can see the whole thing on my screen. Use a space bar to just drag it around so I can see it better. All right. And there's all the shapes together. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the same thing I did with the crust. Is I'm going to select each of those pepperoni slices and then select the move tool and just drag and adjust the size and shape of those pepperoni slices so that they fit on top of that cheese layer a little bit better. So like right there, you can see some of the cheese kind of sticking out. So I just pulled it to be a little bit bigger and come off or overlap the cheese a little bit. Again, there's a little piece of cheese showing through up here between these two pieces. So I'm just going to drag and adjust and resize them so they fit better. This one I ended up kind of resizing and dragging and working with it a little bit to get it just right because it was kind of overlapping more than I wanted it to. And eventually I just dragged it a little bit and then moved it around until it looked right. And then I just rotated it a little bit so it lined up. All right. So just a couple more pepperoni slices. That one in the middle looks pretty good. Everything else looks pretty good. So now I want to add a little bit of value to my shapes here to make it look like this is a little bit more realistic, like it has shadows to it. So for my crust, I held down the control button and then clicked on the little preview on my layer right there. And what that does is it selects the color that's inside that layer. So you see the little dotted lines are around that brown crust area. And now I'm using my gradient tool to add a gradient to create some value. So I'm changing the color to the same color as that crust on one side, and on the other side, I'm changing it to a much lighter version of that crust color. And I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to drag down with the gradient tool, and that's going to create a gradient where it goes from that dark brown to the light brown. Makes it look a little bit more realistic. Now I'm going to do a similar thing, but this time I'm going to be using the pen tool to do my gradient for the cheese because the cheese is still a shape layer because I didn't rasterize it. So I'm choosing that same kind of like cheesy, orangey yellow color. I'm going to hit OK. And then on the other side, I'm going to choose a lighter version of that color so it blends from that dark yellow to the light yellow. All right, so you'll see down in the bottom of the pizza, when I hit OK, it's a little bit darker yellow, and towards the top, it's a little bit lighter yellow. Now I'm going to do the same thing for each of these pepperonis. I went ahead and just chose this already existing red to black gradient. I accidentally hid that one, so I'm going to unhide it. And so I'm going to go around to each of these pepperonis and add that black to red gradient. And you can see it just makes it look a little bit more realistic. So by the time I finished all of them, it kind of looked a little, I don't know, like the pepperonis were a little burned to me. So I decided to go back to that gradient and adjust it. Instead of using black, I just changed that color to a very dark red just by clicking on the red and then kind of going down to the bottom where the darker colors were. And that looks a little bit better to me. It doesn't look like the pepperonis are burning. So I'm just going to go and change all of those because I like the way that looks a little bit better. So I actually recorded myself doing this, and I'm just watching it and narrating for you right now. It makes it a little bit easier to work while my family is around the house making noise and stuff. I don't have to wait for them to be quiet before I can record a video for you guys this way. All right, last pepperoni. Just gonna make it a little bit lighter in color. And there we go. All right. So this is what the finished product should look like. We have our kind of graphic layer over the original photograph. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge all of these layers together by clicking. I'm going to rasterize them first because some of them are still shape layers. And I'm going to right click and I'm going to select merge layers. And that's going to make all of those shapes one layer. So now I have my graphic layer and my photograph layer. So I'm just turning the opacity back up so you can see. And there we go. There's the photograph and the little graphic that we made. So this is what you're going to be doing for this assignment. We're going to save it as a PSD file. Again, that's so you can go back and edit this if you want to change anything about it later. Then we're going to save it as a JPEG because that's our finished picture file, and we're going to turn that one in. And that's it. So you guys know how to turn things in a Google Classroom by now. You should be able to do that no problem. Again, if you have any questions or you get confused, let me know. If you set up a Google Meet with me during my office hours, it's really easy for me to show you kind of a little bit more in detail what's going on in each of these steps. Or if you're having problems with some of the tools and settings not working for you, that's where I can kind of help walk you through it and troubleshoot and kind of figure out what's going on. So please take advantage of that if you can. Have fun with this. See you later.